Good morning. Oh, it is on. How is everyone doing this morning? Okay. As you can see, right here, I'm Mary Margaret Frank, and I'd like to welcome you all to the Strategic Dialogue. What do you call it? We call ourselves partners in crime. My partner over here, Tomas DeBas, we'd like to both welcome you to this dialogue. We're very excited about it. This is with reference to what we call the P3 Impact Award. It's a strategic dialogue surrounding that. And this is our 5th anniversary of the P3 Impact Award. So we're very excited of the 5 years that we've had to learn and grow from the people that are actually doing this. I was just saying earlier, about 2 minutes ago or 2 seconds before they called us to session, was that the reason that I think this award and this dialogue are so important is because I was doing this in practice through a firm that I was working with, and saw as an academic, the talk over here was quite glorious, but the operations were really difficult. And how do you bring those two together? And you bring those two together through the conversations, the disclosure of dialogue, the interactions that we're getting ready to have. So I welcome you and appreciate you being a part of the conversation, because today we have some of the best examples of public-private partnerships from around the world that we're going to discuss and showcase here at this dialogue. We've been together, our partners, Concordia, the U.S. State Department, and the University of Virginia for 5 years, and we're grateful for all the partnerships over those 5 years who have chosen to spend their time with us, including the ones today. We look forward to hearing from you and continuing to promote a dialogue that helps us move forward, because it's only through dialogue that we will continue to see innovations and learn how to sort of cross barriers together. So thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mary Margaret. It's always a pleasure to be here at Concordia. I want to echo the sentiment that Mary Margaret already mentioned, that Concordia has been an amazing platform for us to promote the gospel of partnerships. We consider ourselves reverent to that. And I think all of you, by being here, you're kind of demonstrating the desire that you have to see the public and the private sector collaborating together to address these wicked problems we have around the world. And some of the folks here who are nominated here are a testament to that. So one of the things I want to add, it has been 5 years. It's been an amazing 5 years. I remember when we talked about putting this thing together, I'll be honest that I didn't think it was going to last for 5 years. I thought we were going to do it for a year or two and things going to fizzle down. But what amazed me, obviously, is most of it survived because of this amazing human being and her team and making it happen. But the other element of it is that there is obviously a herd mentality when it comes to partnerships. When people see people collaborating and being successful, it tends to attract other folks to get into it. So I remember our our application pool wasn't that robust when we started, but now we have countless applications that come in that gives us an amazing feeling that we have kind of ignited a movement that promotes this type of collaboration. So one thing I want to add to Mary Margaret is what we've learned in the last 5 years has been, and I'm going to introduce the judges shortly, but I don't envy their job because it gets even difficult every year when we get these amazing applications. The other element of it is that we do get applications that are amazing in spirit and in intent, but they have not reached impact yet for us to give them the Oscars. So we feel like there are emerging partnerships, but they're not there yet to be there. So one of the things Mary Margaret and I have been talking about is what can we do to those partnerships that are emerging, and what kind of value can we add to them, rather than saying, thank you for applying, but you didn't make it this time. What can we make sure that we can add value, not just from us, but the folks who got nominated to them? So I think we're going to try something out, a pilot program, and next year, for the next application poll, When we get those type of emerging partnerships, the Department of State has an accelerator program, just like a venture accelerator program. We have an accelerator program that focuses around PPPs. And so we're going to pick, whether 5 or 10 emerging partnerships that have not made it to be nominated, but we think they have great value and great potential and promise. We will go through this partnership accelerator program for them, and by collaborating, both Concordia and ourselves and everybody else in here to do that. And some of you who are here being nominated, you'll be the mentors to them to ensure that they could follow your path of success. So that's one of the things we want to kind of announce, that we're making commitment to ensure that the next generation of partnerships get the same type of love and support that they need, and legal steroid, as I call it, for them to grow and get to where they be. So that's my pitch, and tweet about it, okay? All right, so the next thing in my order is thanking the judges, because most of you are here because they gave you some love. So I want to thank each of them. I want to start with my former colleague, Ambassador John Heffern, who's a faculty at Georgetown now. Binia Kesley, Senior Director and Strategic Program Lead, Emerging Markets, Johnson & Johnson. Professor Sunil Shah, who's coming a little late. I think she's coming at 10:30. She's in a different session right now. She's the Executive Director of the Big Center for Social Impact Innovation at Georgetown. Eduardo Tugana, I'm going to mess up that. And after I help you out, I messed up this. Tugendat, did I get that right? Tugendat, yes. I know his first name, but I always mess up his last name. He's the thought leadership for Palladium. Rebecca Marmot, Global Vice President, Partnerships and Advocacy, Unilever. Is she here with us? Oh, she's okay. She's coming a little late. And Tim Prewitt, on my right side, the CEO of IDE. And I think we have one judge who wasn't able to come in person. It's Dr. Carrie Healy, President of Bobson College. We miss her, obviously, but she's here in spirit. So these are the judges that are going to be judging the finalists. And most importantly, I also want to introduce the finalists. Both of us will introduce the finalists. Again, as I said in the previous years, and even this year, it's always difficult to pick 5 out of how many we get. But it is a great pleasure to have all of you here. I think we're only missing one partnership who wasn't able to come here in person. But to see you here is a great testament for your commitment to see this movement growing. So the first one is Dreamz, Determined, Resilient, Empowered, AIDS-Free, Mentored, and Safe Women, Dreamz Partnership, which is focused on reducing new HIV infections among adults and girls and young women in sub-Saharan Africa. It's a partnership with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Girl Effect, Johnson & Johnson, Gilead Sciences, and Viv Healthcare. They address the key structural drives of HIV among young girls and women, including access to secondary education, gender-based violence, and lack of economic opportunities.
We also have thank you. Teamwork. Griha Pravish, which is working to establish sustainable, and this is what I love, ecosystems of affordable housing for disadvantaged communities in India. It also has several partners, which is the Sath Charitable Trust, the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation, Brick Eagle, Indian Housing Federation, DBS Affordable Housing, and Micro Housing Finance Corporation. It takes a village. Okay. And what they're doing is, in that ecosystem, they are incorporating training and financial inclusion and community programs to improve the overall living conditions for low-income populations in India.
Next is Cosmos Innovation Center, which harnesses the power of technology-savvy youth to bring innovation to priority development sectors by providing business training, mentorship, and other resources for young Ghanaian entrepreneurs. It is a partnership between DAI Global, Cosmos Energy, and Ghana's Meltwater Entrepreneurship School of Technology. This partnership has trained 270 young folks and launched 7 new startups investing in Ghanaian youth employment and entrepreneurship in the agricultural sector.
Okay. We also have Vivu, did I say that? Kivu, sorry. Yes, I changed the K to a V. Coffee Alliance, and it cultivates the re-emerging coffee industry in the Democratic Republic of Congo in the Lake Kivu region. This is interesting to me because I just got back from Uganda, which is quite close to that area, but not close enough, and have seen and witnessed people talking about the devastation there. So the partnership is between the Polis Center for Social and Economic Development, Higher Grounds Coffee, the Eastern Congo Initiative, and the Department of State's, this is a mouthful, Bureau of Political Military Affairs, I've already given him a hard time, and Office of Weapons Removal Abatement. And through their workshop and training programs, I love the education part, they've worked to improve the lives of the conflict victims in a country that desperately needs it, and other coffee producers in the DRC while increasing coffee production in the area for economic resilience.
Yeah, what is a bureaucracy without a long name? So
Yeah.
awesome. Futuro provides smallholder farmers in Guatemala access to synthetic-free line of pesticide alternatives to combat pests and promote healthier community and environment. Futuro is a partnership between Feed the Future, Partnering for Innovation, Agropecuria Popoyan, Fintrack, Universidad del Valle, and Genesis Empresarial. Through a sustainable business model, the partnership works to end hunger, lift farmers out of poverty.
Okay, so for the audience, I'd like you to remind you to download the Concordia app, because at the end, we will have a vote that you have to use your app for. We're working in the new age, so if everybody could download your app so that you can vote. And I would like just to remind the participants that what will happen is we're going to have some partnership insights. Then we will move to the presentations. The presentations will be 10 minutes that they can split in presentations as well as Q&A. So it's 10 minutes for presentation and Q&A. But before we begin that, we would like to begin by just having a dialogue. I get to take off my reading glasses now. Have a dialogue about partnership building. And this is where I think some of the lofty goals and the sort of nitty-gritty and thinking about how we get this done can begin to surface, and we can share best practices, hurdles that we're dealing with. So what we like to sort of offer is, are there people around that have questions, insights as you think about the partnership experience that you've engaged in? So for example, one of the things that has been, that people talk about and was on the applications was the issue of the SDGs. And what role is it that the SDGs play in the formation of these partnerships and the operation of the partnerships? I don't know if there are insights into that and how you thought about when you engaged in your partnership, how you set that up. I just open the floor for that.
We open and I would suggest first Liv to give the opportunity to the P3 Impact Award nominees will actually have an opportunity to talk about their partnerships. So we would like to open it up to folks who are around the table who might want to add their 2 cents into that conversation. Before I call your name. Go ahead.
Thank you, and great to be here. I think probably for the work that we've been doing at IDE, the biggest difference between the SDGs as they've been issued, there are so many of them and so many sub-goals that once upon a time, in fact, when we were founded 35 years ago, it was a solve for X equation. You're looking at working on poverty. Now you just have so many issues that are commingled and interdependent that you have to design very thoughtful and more complex solutions. Incidentally, I think we have some great examples with this round today, but that's been the largest change for us.
I like that. Solve for X. Right now it's X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, and it's like
Exactly.
And the correlation
there's 17
between them.
variables in that. That's awesome. Anybody else?
I would just add that I think where the SDGs have added tremendous value is it's the closest thing to a Rosetta Stone you have for partnerships, because you have an agreed upon set of goals, an agreed upon set of metrics that maybe not every company has subscribed to, but a great number of companies, even well below the level of multinationals, are at least aware of. And you can start to have a discussion about what's the impact we want to have. And for us, that's made it, I think we see it as, again, sort of a Rosetta Stone for translating between the sectors and getting everybody on the same page. Like, this is the impact we want to have on SDG 9 on infrastructure, or this is what we want to do on SDG 12. And at least that makes the conversation move more quickly.
I like that. Impact used to be on the eye of the beholder, no more, no more, right? You want to make sure that you're in that. Great. Anybody else? Okay, you have.
No, I don't have to be the only one to ask questions, so I want to also open the floor for others if you have questions. As a professor, I have lots of questions that I can ask, but I would love to engage others in the questions because as a professor, I sit in a lofty academic tower. You actually are involved in these and would really appreciate your questions to each other about what you're experiencing as well. So please, just because my red light's on doesn't mean that I have the floor, okay? So I just want to encourage that. But if no one will, I will. Okay, there we go.
I was just going to ask an open question. I mean, I think I recently graduated from graduate school, and I think a lot of times what I was learning was the idea of a PPP or a public-private partnership was this large-scale infrastructure investment with that was super outdated in terms of terminology. But around this table, we see all this innovative, different approaches to what a PPP can actually look like. So I'm really curious to hear from you guys yourselves. How have you seen the shift in what a public-private partnership looks like and what it can be from what maybe the historical public perception was or is?
Go ahead.
So congratulations on the recent graduation. What I will say is, from personal and professional experience, I think you were spot on. The SDGs have given us a compass. In prior times, you would see this heavy infrastructure and see a lot of press and publication around companies trying to sort of get a name out there for the great work that they're doing while it turns into profits and it becomes driven on this premise, but using the sort of social impact, even though it wasn't called that. Now what you see is you can't really just do a high gloss over of getting into a particular relationship because now the impact is actually seen, felt, and it's sustainable. So for example, gender equality. You can no longer just say, we've hired, at parity. You can't just hire for this year because now people are paying attention. And it's not just the people that are in your organization or your competitors. The world is watching because you've put out there that you're utilizing the SDGs as a compass for accomplishing social good. You better be very, very certain that you have a sustainability program tied around that to ensure that it's not just lip service because you will see the backlash and it will affect the profits that you may have been sort of hiding behind to sort of see grow. And I think for me, that's been the greater shift in this particular space, regardless of where you look, whether you're doing it in post-conflict, you're doing it in developed markets, developing markets. It sort of, it gives you a great equalizer, if you will.
I'd like to make a couple comments. One is a lot of the traditional approach to PPPs were in fact contracts, right? That had a beginning and an end with a very particular result in mind. I think a lot of the partnerships we see emerging coming through this process are different kinds of collaborations among different kinds of organizations, of which I would probably characterize two types. One would be pre-competitive collaborations, which means groups that are coming together to collaborate on a common problem, but really seeing it as something where maybe even competitive companies, right, work together on that problem, but have to figure out how do they measure success and work against it. The other type of interesting collaborative business model is where it's actually done for competitive or market differentiation, which is quite different. And one of the challenges there, and one of the things I would always look for is ultimately, very often the first phase is thought of, okay, let's try a pilot or a proof of concept. But what becomes the challenge is turning that solution into an investable type of structure that can then attract third-party capital and actually grow and continue. And I think that's, from the corporate space, is one of the big, big challenges, is how to make that happen.
Could I build on Eduardo's comment and appreciate being here, Mary Margaret, thanks to you and Tomas. The idea that the best, most successful partnership that I've been involved in my foreign service career was in Armenia. We did a partnership with USAID and Smithsonian and a bunch of Armenian diaspora groups. And we didn't even know where it was going. And so there was no contract that said we had to do X, Y, and Z by a certain date, because when this partnership began, we didn't even know where it was going. We had a common mission statement, we had a common goal. We knew each other well, and we trusted each other that we were going to try to do the same thing over the course of time. And it evolved in ways that were unforeseen when it actually started and became a rural development writ large kind of a project with 4 components. So I think you're right. I think we didn't have a contract with a lot of deliverables at the end. It started with a handshake and became legal and became money and did a lot of stuff together. So I think that's right. We didn't know where it was going when we started.
I got an interesting comment about the partnerships and the old approaches. I'm with Alphabet Soup with the Lake Kivu Coffee Alliance, or weapons removal for short. I'm one of the few public institutions here. When I first started this partnership with Higher Grounds and the Polis Center, I could say that at least at the State Department, from my perspective, we use partnerships very loosely. We've been using the term partnerships like it's a handshake, go forth, do great things, come back and tell us how great you did them, rather than go through this formal process of going through and writing an MOU, coming up with agreed terms, rules, and responsibilities, and laying out a kind of a strategic plan. And also because it's the Congo, where everything's difficult, we had to lay out a travel schedule. It's very complicated when you have no internet, no Wi-Fi, no phones. So it became very difficult, and it was only going through this new process that we learned that it's a much more strategic route that we have to form these partnerships, that it's more than just the simple handshakes.
So I'll close for just a second on that question. As the academic, actually you've asked the question that I have been whiteboarding for a while, because I find it really interesting that, so I was a finance background, and when you think about P3s, you think about infrastructure financing, right? And to me, it's 2 worlds coming together. It's the formality, the contracting of P3s and the financing and how you think about that. But there's the CSR on the corporate side, which is more about collaboration. And so to me, it's those 2 worlds coming together, maybe under the guidance of the SDGs, but sort of so the academic world is a little behind the practitioner world in these respects. And thinking about, we keep teaching P3s and infrastructure, and P3s have become much broader because of, I believe, the CSR movement, and they're now combining. So we need to step up on the academic front.
Just to add to that, I think the other thing that we also see is kind of the slow death of CSR, in a way that there are companies right now focused their quote-unquote CSR activities on their business model collaborations, where they're making, going from kind of the PR, the public relations mode, to like the public good mode, and which strengthens their obviously market position, market penetration, what have you. So that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. I mean, everybody's mentioned. I think we probably might need to come up with something else instead of calling it, PPPs. What else can we call it so it does not get confused with that contractual, a private sector giving service to the government and making money out of it? That's procurement, not partnership. And so how do we redefine that as an element that we should be talking about? So I think the other thing I want to put out, and I know we got 6 minutes on this conversation, is around. You have a question? Let me pause there and you can ask the question. This is for the folks who got nominated. In terms of managing partners, because it's a lot easier, at least from the government side. We tell an implementing partner, here's the resources, go deal with this. And they go dance, they go do whatever they need to do to make it happen. But in the case of partnerships, you're getting into kind of an arranged marriage with multiple partners in some cases. That gets the element of what it means to collaborate, because not everybody's there contractually. Some cases there's no contract. It's just pure love. And how do you manage that? I would love to hear from some of you who are managing different partners to do that. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great question, and it actually goes back to, the original role of PPPs and how they've evolved. You're right, Professor, Doctor. The PPPs in the past were for bridges and ports and airports and water systems and things like that, and now they're actually developed to hit long-term strategies. And in the case of USAID funding these things, they actually want private sector to contribute to part of their development impact. And so for us, the initial engagement is really important. We spend a lot of time with our partners after the competitive selection process, basically getting to know them and trying to figure out what our shared values are with them. Now, for us, obviously, it's small farmers. We need to have impact on small farmers. That's what we report to USAID, every month. And ideally, we want these partners to recognize the value of working in those sectors and be able to make a good business out of it. So developing a strategy early on and a work plan, usually we set that up as like the first deliverables that we want to see out of the partners. And we negotiate milestones around that. And those are done collaboratively. And also, more importantly, we recognize that in agriculture, things change all the time. Doesn't rain, you get typhoons and hurricanes. You have all sorts of problems. So we make that flexible, and we revisit that work plan periodically so that it's real. It's not just a document that you drop at the beginning.
And just to complement to Bob, there's a really interesting intersection between some goals that Feed the Future Partnering for Innovation has and us from the private sector have. So that intersection that aligns the people, planet, and profit is really what the shared value is about. So, for example, we have hectares under technology. For us, it's growers buying the solutions. We have technology adoption. For us, it's sales on biological control products. We have a social impact, and then we have last mile delivery by having a sustainable distribution channel. So that's where that perfect intersection is combined. And to develop that perfect intersection, you need to co-create, not only with our partners, but also with the clients, with the beneficiaries, yeah? Because that's when you gain the trust of everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So for us at DAI, I think for many years, we were kind of more in this traditional mode of contractor client. So we would work with the likes of USAID and DFID, and it was very much, as you said, here's the money, now dance, or whatever it is, provide the results, provide the metrics that we're looking for. And Cosmos Innovation Center has been an exciting experiment for us as well, working with a partner where we're actually co-implementing on the ground. So that means our DAI local Ghanaian staff are embedded at Cosmos Energy's offices, working together with them every single day, implementing the project on the ground. And so we've really become one team. It's not really your traditional client-contractor relationship. I don't know if that works for every partnership, but it has worked very well for ours in the sense that it helps us align goals, it helps us stay connected and have clear lines of communications. There's no, let's have quarterly meetings. We're literally talking to each other every single day. And it also allows us to be a bit more flexible and nimble in our implementation and make changes and apply lessons learned not on an annual basis, but in real time.
David, I think, has a question. Can you come on just ask a question on the mic?
Here you go.
Oh, okay.
David Wilcox, Reach Scale. I know you guys struggle with the fact that you have this thing called PPPs, and as the flow comes in, it can be anything. And I'm kind of struck by the fact that we're 3 years into the SDGs. Mary Margaret started out with the SDG question. So I think one thing that would be worth all of us thinking about, and I'm not sure there's an answer to it today, but there seem to be, if you look around UN Opening Week, some examples where a particular focus has led to a bunch of partnerships developing that now give us new information about PPPs in general, but also about doing that particular kind of work. So I was at the Convergence session yesterday morning, and Joan will be on the panel next with us on the scale discussion. But that's an example where the focus on alternative finance, creative finance, concentrating resources has introduced a whole range of partnering activities that are quite different than the kind of general partnering activities, and where both skill sets really need to be brought together to do anything at scale. So that's a question I think we could all ask, which is, what are these areas of focus that are outside our general PPP area that bring into the area a new set of skills or a new set of capabilities that would really leverage what we're trying to do in each of our PPPs. And I would just, if people have comments on having experienced that already, that would be great. But I think it's just a general area that we need to spend some time on.
I appreciate that as a finance professor. I really appreciate that, because for me, my two worlds have started to collide in the impact investing space and the P3 space as we begin to think about, it started with the social impact bonds, right? They are public-private partnerships, but they're also innovative financing. And so how do we think about what the good is of that and what the constraints are of that, and how do we bring these worlds together, I think is a really interesting next step moving forward. So thank you for that. We are out of time, and we need to move to our presentations. So we'd like to move forward with that. We're going to have, going this way, we're going to have Dreamz go first, if you don't mind. Okay, thank you.
Just quickly before we start, I'm gonna explain a little bit of how this works. As our moderators have expressed already, you guys have 10 minutes each to present, and then we can field the Q&A from all the other participants. At the 5-minute mark, I'll give you a 5-minute, and then at the 1, I'll give you a 1 minute. Thank you. No.
Good morning, and thank you very much for inviting us to share our story of Dreamz partnership. My name is Anna Caravaggio, and I lead our Consumer Center of Excellence at Johnson & Johnson's Global Public Health Group. Before 2 years ago, I had not heard anything about Dreamz, and you did a really nice job explaining what Dreamz is, and I was going to throw it out to the audience to ask, does everyone know what Dreamz stand for? I said to our judges this morning that I'm a Canadian, and so when I meet Americans, I really do encourage you to look it up. It's a really terrific effort by PEPFAR under the U.S. State Department, and my partner here, Lauren, will talk about that. Dreamz stands for Determined, Resilient, Empowered, AIDS-Free, Mentored, and Safe. It focuses on girls who are 15 to 24 years old, and it's a $385 million public and private partnership that over the last 2 years has reached 2.5 million girls. Lauren, I've often heard your boss, Ambassador Birx, talk about the deliberate nature of this partnership. Will you share with the group what that deliberation was all about?
Absolutely. Thank you, Anna. My name is Lauren Marx. I work for the U.S. Department of State, so we're the public side of this public-private partnership, although I'll talk more about how governments work with us as well. I lead public-private partnerships for the PEPFAR program, the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. So I have the privilege of getting to proactively reach out to private sector partners like Johnson & Johnson to think about the creative skill sets and capabilities they have and how they can enhance our programs. So we're really proud of the work we've done together on Dreamz. I'll start with just a quick synopsis of what the world looked like for adolescent girls when we started this partnership a few years ago. Every day, 1,000 adolescent girls and young women contract HIV. 1,000 girls every single day. And girls really are more disproportionately affected than boys of the same age. 2/3 of the new infections occur among girls. There's a number of factors which lead to this vulnerability. It's lack of education, lack of economic opportunity, gender-based violence. And what makes this partnership really unique is that it's not just about the health and the HIV status, but it's all of these other societal and structural factors that influence these girls' risk to HIV. And from the partnership perspective, that meant I got to reach beyond the traditional healthcare or health-focused company and talk to companies who had different sector interests, different core capabilities, different things they could bring to the table. And that's how we got to work with J&J and some of the other partners. So I'll turn it over to Anna now, who can talk a little bit about how Dreamz was a priority for Johnson & Johnson.
I think I mentioned to those of you who I met this morning, I come from the consumer sector of Johnson & Johnson and really have spent the last 2 decades of my career focused on reaching consumers, as we call them, although in our public health partnership, we don't call them consumers. And girls and young women have been a focus of J&J for many, many years, both in our philanthropy group, where we focused on service delivery to young women and to moms. We are, after all, the baby company. But also with our brands, which is where I come from, with brands like Neutrogena and Clean and Clear, where we spend all of our efforts really trying to understand the insights of how to reach young women most effectively. And those insights were really essential as a capability to bring to this partnership. But we were also really excited about the scale that PEPFAR brought. As a person who comes from a business background, one of the things that strikes me about public health is the need for greater scale. And Lauren and I talked about that, how it's kind of a flip-flop. Normally, private sector brings scale and government brings the opposite. But in this case, we really saw the opportunity to work with an organization like PEPFAR to reach the ambition that we had to achieve the ambition that we had around reaching young women, but with the scale that something like Dreamz brings, which is targeted at 10 sub-Saharan African countries.
I want to focus a bit on the partnership components of Dreamz. Whenever I am entering into a new partnership, I like to be really transparent and upfront and think, what is in it for me and what's in it for the other partner? Because partnerships are hard work and they require additional effort. Sometimes it's easier to do things on your own, but we're really trying to make the case that we can do things better and more efficiently when we do them together. So we approached this partnership and we thought, really, why do we want to do this together? Anna, you talked a bit about scale. Can you elaborate more on why you thought it was worthwhile doing this together with PEPFAR?
For sure. When we think about the capabilities we bring versus the capabilities that PEPFAR brings, their ability to convene governments, both at the local level, but also with civil society, is something that J&J doesn't do, but looking at the capabilities that we bring, and really focusing on that consumer capability and that ability to understand young women, we really thought bringing these together will allow us to achieve our goals in a way that would be quite accelerated. But it's not just the two of us. We have the privilege of sitting here representing this partnership, but if you look on this slide, you'll see that there are other partners. Gilead, Girl Effect, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and ViiV, just to mention a few. You know, just off the top of your head, you could imagine that Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation versus a Girl Effect with the history of Nike would bring completely different capabilities, ways of reaching and making impact among young women. Lauren, do you want to talk a little bit about those partners?
Yeah, I'd love to say a little bit more about the core capabilities and the skill sets that each of the partners brought to Dreamz. We were speaking here earlier today about what makes a good partnership. And I want to distinguish the days of old where we used to just measure how much money did someone invest in a partnership, the old model of public-private partnership. And I really have seen an evolution. Now we really look at how much value did people bring. It's not measured in dollars. It's measured in these unique capabilities and skill sets. And that's what I find particularly inspiring about Johnson & Johnson's Global Public Health Group, is it takes those core capabilities and skill sets that are inherent to the company, whether it's consumer marketing or research and development, and it applies them to global health. So it's all about their business skills being applied in a new and different way. So I'll just give a quick example. Johnson & Johnson, as part of their contribution to Dreamz, did a segmentation where they really tried to understand the motivations of girls and help us figure out how to reach them more effectively. We were looking fairly simplistically at where did they live and how old were they. And Johnson & Johnson really pushed us to say there are other factors that are influencing girls. So the same way they would try and market a particular product to girls, we now know how to market services, healthcare, life-saving healthcare services to girls in a more efficient and effective way. The other thing I just want to say is Johnson & Johnson really brought the voices of those girls, of the beneficiaries, as we call them, maybe the consumers, as a company might call them, to the table. And they really pushed us to listen to those girls. Their motto from the beginning was, nothing for us without us. So how can we make sure we really understand those girls when we're trying to go in and reach them with the services? There's another piece I'd love you to talk a little bit about, Anna, because I think it'll resonate with some of the other companies in the room, which is the employment piece.
This picture that you see behind you is the best example of it. There are two illustrations I want to make. One is we funded a small organization called Community Media Trust out of Nairobi. And their focus is really about empowering young women with new skills like photography and blogging and digital acumen. And so we were sitting around thinking about this segmentation study and how do we bring it to life. And one of the things that I've done as a consumer marketer for many years is use photography to illustrate the different segments. And as we were scratching our heads thinking about, so how do we get this photography done in a way that makes sense, we thought about our group, the Community Media Trust group that we had given a grant to. And rather than just hand over that grant and measure them on a quarterly basis for the results, we thought about reaching out to them and having them take the photography. So all of the photography that you see in this presentation was done by young women who are trying to skill themselves up. Because not only are we consumer marketers, but we are the employers of 120,000 people worldwide. And we know that as an employer, when employees build skills, that really empowers them for the future. So employment and youth employment was really critical for us and what we brought to this partnership. You'll see me smile endlessly when I talk about the second picture. This is our youth leadership team for our group called Tina Banta Basha. They are the leaders of this program that we've developed, kicked off in Durban, South Africa. And rather than us develop the strategy, which is originally how we started thinking about it, you know, in North America, sitting here thinking about the strategies and then handing it over to the youth, we really stopped and said, we are not equipped to understand this. How would we do this in our business? We would listen to the people who we're trying to serve. So we've hired these 6 young people, all in university, pursuing their own careers. We've hired them to both develop the strategy for the program, but also lead the development and the implementation of this program. So those are just 2 examples of not only our focus on insights and understanding, but also then turning it back to create empowerment through youth employment.
Great. The last part I want to make is how do we measure success of this partnership? So there's the very obvious measurement, harkening back to the SDGs. Did we achieve what we set out to do? And the answer is yes, we did. We impacted the lives of 2.5 million girls across 15 countries, and we reduced HIV for those girls, helping us reach our goal of HIV epidemic control. But I want to make another point. When we measure partnerships, I think it's also worth thinking about, did we do this more effectively because we did it in partnership? And the best metrics I've seen for measuring partnerships are fourfold. Is it more efficient? Is it more effective? Were you able to reach broader scale? And was it done sustainably? So those are the 4 factors I like to look at to say, was the partnership itself successful as a partnership? So Anna, could you say a little bit about the efficiency and the effectiveness?
For sure. Okay.
Apologies. I think we're just to keep on the flow. We can open up questions afterwards.
Sure.
But, so sorry.
No.
Press the,
Oh, yes, of course.
your mics. I will be now showing you a video on behalf of Griha Pravesh, who unfortunately could not make it today. So they are the partnership out of India, and they will explain their partnership model.
Hello everyone, I am Neeraj Jani from Saath Charitable Trust, Ahmedabad, Gujarat, India. We are working since last 30 years with integrated need-based approach in lower income group communities, slums of Ahmedabad and 5 other states. While working in lower income group communities, what we realized is there are people who want to purchase their own home, but they are finding challenges in terms of they do not have proper documentation of their income. They don't know which are the developers or where are the products are available. They do not have their bank statement accounts which proves them creditworthy. These are the challenges related to informal sector workers, and that was stopping them from buying home. To address these challenges, we did a quick survey in the slum communities, and we found there are around 10% of people who can really buy their own home with market-based model. To make it happen, we require other two partners. One of them is developer, who will going to produce their homes for the informal sector workers. Second will be the housing finance companies, who will going to finance their homes. So what we did is we have designed a solution called Grah Pravesh, which work with all these three stakeholders: developer, housing finance companies, and potential home buyers. And we have find out what are the gaps in all these three partners. After identification, we came into touch developer called DBS and housing finance company called MHFC, who were interested for doing pilot. And pilot, which we have designed about 200 apartments, we named it Umang. It means aspiration in Gujarati. And during that process, what we have realized is there are a lot of challenges is working with the partner. One of them is developer don't know what are the requirements from the potential home buyers, what their needs. Housing finance companies don't know how to assess these informal sector workers, whether they are creditworthy or not. So our main role, and same time, the people who want to buy home, they don't know how to approach developer and how to see that these are the legal homes and as matching with their income and affordability. So our role is working with all the three stakeholders and giving them appropriate solution in their operations. And successfully we have implemented pilot. It was very successful. People were happy moving into those premises. We have scaled up this initiative in other 3 states of India. And till today, there are 3,000 people who have purchased home through Grah Pravesh, and they are very happy with the moving into their homes. This was one of the aspects. There was demand from informal sector workers to develop a market-based solution. Now, if we win this competition, so we would like to take it to next level, which is rental housing market. While developing this solution and implementing this solution, we realized that we were able to work with only 10% of people who can afford formal buying homes. But there are large chunk of people who cannot afford formal buying homes, but they are residing on informal rental housing in the slums, which there is no adequate services and quality of living habitats. So there is huge opportunity to work with developer on rental housing model and housing finance companies to developing a solution which is more formal for rental housing market. I would like to thank you, team of P3 Impact Award, for giving us this opportunity to share our ideas, and looking forward to work with you in next level. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was Grah Pravesh. Unfortunately, they could not make it today. Now we will be transitioning over. Before we go over to Cosmos, we will quickly open up a question for Dreamz. If anybody has just one quick question, so that we can keep going. If any judges have any questions, yes.
My question would be, obviously there's very significant taxpayer money and Gates Foundation money going into this, especially from the corporate side. Let's say taxpayers decide they don't want to pay anymore. Is there something being left behind? How will this function? Will this continue without? Is there a structure there that can continue?
Yeah, for sure. That's the focus on employment and understanding, because I think those are the critical things that are left behind, that skill building that is enduring and the capability that you leave with young women that are empowered. That was a really critical part of our initiative. I didn't explain also that I come from a bit of a unique part of J&J, which is global public health. We're neither the CSR part of our organization nor the profit-making sector part of our organization. We've set up offices in Kenya and South Africa, really trying to build a sustainable business model even within J&J. And that kind of unique setup will be enduring for us as well. And Dreamz was one of our first signature programs to really try and take our own business model experimentation as we try and bring sustainable healthcare to many resource-limited settings.
Also wanted to mention the importance of working with the governments where the program is being implemented. So as a wonderful example, in South Africa, the government themselves launched a program called She Conquers, which was basically replicating Dreamz. So they took the model and they ran with it and they did it themselves, which was our true measure of success.
Okay, now we will be transitioning over to Cosmos. Yeah, just press it.
Hello, everyone, and thank you again for the opportunity to be here. It's a pleasure and an honor for both of us. My name is Deepika Chawla. I work for DAI. I'm a corporate social investment specialist within our Sustainable Business Group. Today, we're going to talk about our partnership, Cosmos Innovation Center, very near and dear to both of our hearts. So our motto for Cosmos Innovation Center is investing in the future one entrepreneur at a time. What that means for us is that we support Ghana's youth to create commercially viable solutions to pressing development challenges. So as a program, we provide tools, skills, and importantly, a community within Ghana that supports them through their entrepreneurial journey. And so we think that what makes us unique among entrepreneurship and innovation programs around the world is our kind of full life cycle approach, or at least it's one of the things that makes us unique. And what I mean by the full life cycle approach is that we do intensive entrepreneurship training for young people who, some of which might have been entrepreneurs before, but many of which have never tried starting their own business. They don't have any exposure, particular to the sector we might have chosen for that particular year, but they know that they want to do something different. They might be unemployed or not happy where they currently are, and so we provide them with that training very early on. We work them through the ideation process and through an eventual startup pitch competition. We give seed funding as a prize to the final winners and also work with other external investors to leverage external funding for certain teams to address the other access to finance component that entrepreneurs face in places like Ghana. And we also have an incubator as part of the project to take some of the most successful teams and help them launch, grow, and eventually scale their businesses. So to give a little bit of more color and a rich story behind this, I wanted to take you on an individual journey of one entrepreneur that went through our program. His name is Kelvin Ashi, and he had just taken his first job out of school in the construction industry. He wasn't quite satisfied. He didn't really know quite what to do next, but he kind of knew he didn't want to stay where he was. Didn't really have any interest in agriculture or in entrepreneurship really or anything, but he decided to apply for Cosmos Innovation Center, ended up being accepted into the program, and 2 months later he finds himself on a bus traveling around rural Ghana, talking to people from all walks of life, talking to smallholder farmers, talking to wholesalers, aggregators, merchant women, talking about what are the challenges that they face, what are the market inefficiencies that keep them from achieving higher incomes or greater efficiencies within their own agribusinesses. And then his job, along with his team, was to think of what could an ICT or tech solution contribute to this, or could it address this particular problem? Is that not the right type of solution for this problem? Where are the correct entry points for a youth-led startup? And we guide them through this process, thinking through what are the complex problems and what might a young person be able to do to solve them in a commercially viable way. So Kelvin and his teammates ended up zeroing in on a particular niche problem, finding that poultry farmers in Ghana, even those with sizable operations, still keep paper records, that are written in pencil, and kind of they can't keep track of their inputs, their outputs, and so they're losing out on efficiencies and therefore income. So fast forward 7 months later, Kelvin and his team had developed an enterprise resource management software that helped farmers kind of move into the next century and digitize their records and use useful data and analytics, but in a accessible mobile interface that is realistic to use for a small rural farmer in Ghana. And so they pitched this at the pitch competition and ended up winning $50,000 in seed funding from Cosmos Innovation Center and entry into our local incubator, who is our third partner, MEST, the Meltwater Entrepreneurial School of Technology in Ghana. And it was important for us to partner with MEST because they know how to help launch businesses in the Ghanaian environment. And so if AgriNova is able to reach their goals, they'll be able to reach about 5,000 farmers within the first few years of operation with a commercial solution. And Kelvin is just one example of hundreds of entrepreneurs that have run through our program, and each one of them, each one of the teams that are successful will be able to potentially reach thousands of farmers and also create efficiencies within the market system that we hope will help transform the sector as a whole. And importantly, Kelvin now serves as a mentor to our next round of entrepreneurs. And that's the KIC community that we've really tried to foster. We not only bring in mentors, and importantly for us, Ghanaian mentors, mentors from Ghana industry, government, and industry and academia, rather, but also using the graduates, so to speak, of the program. Another winner of Cosmos Innovation Center, AgroCenta, has hired 50 employees within 2 years. They went on to win the Global Seed Stars competition in Switzerland, and they serve as one of our top mentors to the other young people going through the program as well, and pay it forward in that way. So that's the community that we've tried to create. Before I turn it over to George to talk more about the Cosmos side of the story, I'll just talk very quickly about the other two partners and the value that we bring from our perspective. So DAI, my company's value to the program is that we have 50 years of experience implementing international development programs around the world, usually working for more the development donor space, the USAIDs, the DFIDs of the world, and with corporates. But as I said, this has been a really special project for us in the sense of being a true co-implementation arrangement. So we bring kind of the agribusiness expertise, the experience training entrepreneurs in the developing world, knowledge of the micro and macro constraints, and MEST is the local incubator that we've used.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us here. My name is George Sapon. I'm the Director for Corporate Affairs and also for Cosmos Energy, and also the Managing Director for this program, Cosmos Innovation Center. Let's talk a moment about what Cosmos is all about. Cosmos is an international oil and gas company headquartered in Dallas. We work on both sides of the Atlantic, particularly in the North and West Africa. About a decade ago, the company made the first major oil discovery in Ghana, and it has really been very transformative for Ghana and particularly also for the company. So in 2016, our leadership wanted us to crystallize the importance of Ghana, Ghana to our company. We were asked to develop a flagship social investment program that would demonstrate long-term commitment to the country. Our CEO specifically asked us to think big and do something transformational. Yes, transformational. The case for doing something in entrepreneurship and innovation was easy, because when you take Cosmos, entrepreneurship is in our company DNA. We are a company of 300 people who pride ourselves in thinking out of the box and thinking big, and also tackling issues, challenges to de-risk risky businesses. Deepika talked about the program, but I would like to take a moment to talk about what I think are the key paradigm shifts that we are making with our program. The first one is the shift in how companies approach CSR. As companies get more and more focused on shared values, that perfect unicorn of a project where business interests and social interests merge in perfect harmony, we stepped out of it and said we want to simply focus on where we could put our money and make a big impact. That immediately took us to agriculture. What is agriculture in Ghana? Agriculture is the largest current employer in Ghana and also the sector that has the greatest potential for growth. Over 40% of Ghanaians are directly involved in agriculture. Ghana imports close to $100 million worth of tomatoes every year. And rice imports is about $500 million annually. The second paradigm shift is moving from Ghanaians looking to the outside for help with our problems. Our program is about empowering young Ghanaians guided by Ghanaian business leaders and mentors to come up with local, commercially oriented solutions. And the third paradigm shift, and it's related, is about the nature of entrepreneurialism, which, like many places in Ghana, can be a very individualistic endeavor. We are asking young people to work on teams with people who will eventually be their co-founders. We are showing them firsthand how they can not only help themselves and their families, but how they can help the whole country. I have personally seen this transformation in hundreds of young people who have passed through our program. We believe that we are creating a template for entrepreneurship programs that we can apply in any other country and any other sector. The key, as we see it, is local knowledge paired with commercial solutions and a deep personal and commitment to partnership. What are we doing? We do inspire, we invest, and we transform the youth. That is what we do with this program.
Thank you. Now we can open it up for a quick question, and then we'll transition.
Yeah, thank you. Very impressive project. My question is on the ecosystem. You talk about changing the agribusiness, agriculture ecosystem in Ghana. Have you had any success working with the governments, the state governments and the national government to change the laws and change the policies and practices, regulations to help your beneficiaries, your partners be more successful?
Yeah, certainly so, because it's interesting that a key priority for the Ghana government right now is is agriculture, and they have what we call planting for food and jobs. So particularly, they have really seen our program very attractive and very much in support. As a matter of fact, we have been, the Cosmos Innovation Center program has been, in the past, been invited to sit around with policymakers to discuss how our program can impact the policy.
Sorry, can I ask one as well? Really, really impressive, thank you. At what point do you decide to exit from giving support to the companies and know that they are sustainable and you can leave the entrepreneurs then to go on and expand themselves?
Actually, the investment we give to the companies, in fact, is the minimal part of it, because what we have seen is what we give them is the seed money. And it's, by the way, it's not free money. We take equity position in it because we need to demonstrate they have skin in the game. But they go on to be able to raise funds. And to date, in totality, the companies we have raised close to about $2 million in investment already. So what we put in is just minimal amount. They go out there and attract investment themselves.
So it's grant capital that you give them at the beginning to get the business going, and then it becomes self-sustaining.
Yes.
And so, on average, how long are you exiting? Is it 5 years or 7 years?
So there have been no exits per se yet. But we also, in addition to the financial aspect, we also continue to provide technical assistance. So MEST, the local incubator, helps them, but our KIC, DAI staff also continues to mentor them through the launch and growing the program. But we do try to taper it off, because the idea is that we do want them to become self-sustaining. I mean, they can always call upon us as mentors, but we want to be able to temper off that support. Usually we're seeing, and we're a young program, so we're 3 years in. So I would say, When year 1, we're fully supporting them to be in the incubator. In year 2, they have to start paying their own way if they want to stay in the incubator, but we still provide them with mentorship and support. In year 3, they can continue to pay their way in the incubator if they want, but it starts to taper off more and more gradually. So it becomes just less structured in terms of the technical assistance component.
Okay, yes, good morning. Congratulations to our fellow nominees. I'm Dennis Hadrick, and I'm a program manager in the Office of Weapons Removal and Abatement, or just WRA for short. I assist other countries to clear and destroy landmines, unexploded ordnance, and other explosive items. And we also provide rehabilitation services to victims of conflict, mainly through the use of artificial limbs or sometimes trauma counseling, that kind of stuff. So I'm here to talk about this Lake Kivu Coffee Alliance with my co-speaker, Chris Treater, with the Higher Grounds and the Polis Center. We started up this project with a whopping $250,000. And we're barely, not even through our first year, but you know, we're a team of 4, literally, Chris and I and the Polis Center, 4 people. And I'm happy to report that healing is happening now in the Congo. So you don't really have to have hundreds of millions of dollars to make a huge impact. It really takes a few dedicated people who are willing to go to places on the ground at sometimes personal risk. But you know, this has been an interesting project because it was during my first trip to the Congo that I've seen firsthand the devastation of the 2 Congo wars, especially in Eastern Congo. And I've managed programs from Afghanistan, Iraq, and Zimbabwe. And it took me a while to really wrap my head around what was I going to do in the Congo. I had never worked in Africa before because my expertise was in blowing stuff up from a military background. And so while I was in the Congo, I was just really overwhelmed with the problems that they have there. And then, you know, some people may call epiphany. I had a cup of coffee. I was trying to figure out what was I going to do, what could I do to help solve this, and not with a big budget either, you know. And so I made a cold call to the Polis Center, who I knew from background, who I had worked with previously with landmines in the coffee industry in Colombia. And I figured, wow, man, I could, you know, now I need to form a public-private partnership because there's no way the State Department could solve this problem with the money that we have. We need to join forces and come together as a team in order to try and solve a complex problem, working with the specialty coffee industry. And that's how the Polis Center then contacted Chris, who is one of the first coffee buyers to ever enter into the DRC in this emerging specialty coffee market. So, Chris?
Sorry, I'm not from these parts. The Lake Kivu Coffee Alliance is something really special, amazing, emerging, and transforming ourselves and the way we look at partnerships, as well as, well, I'd like to humbly say it's playing a part of transforming the minds and leading to a lot of change in the DRC. One of the things that's central to it is the concept of collective impact. Dr. Mary Margaret, I believe you were asking about in the academic realm, where do we go with partnerships? Partnerships is a bygone concept. Yes, we use the terminology, but if we were to be successful, we're transforming it into something else that's meeting the needs of everybody that's participating as a way, the best approach to create impact that is collectively needed in society. So that's the way that we look at working in the Congo. And one of the things, if we want to help the people, the people left on Earth, the family members of nearly 6 million people who have died in the last 25 years due to conflict. That's more people than all wars on earth have died due to conflict in the DRC. And it's still going on. And it's something that we here in the media, we don't hear about as much. So I traveled to the Congo many times, and I got a call from Michael. And I went on a fact-finding delegation, and all of a sudden we were traveling and asking questions. Michael taught me about model coherency, a way of learning about the needs of individuals. And we interviewed over 100 people in a few days. And communities where I had been, I had never seen all these people with disabilities. Two of my uncles had just died, and I had never really recognized their disability the way that I could now after being with Michael and Dennis and hearing from all these individuals that are ostracized, literally rotting away in the backs of their house. So how can we create the change necessary to not leave behind people in society, the 1 billion people in society, 70% of which are in regions that are developing that have disabilities? How can we integrate them into our supply chains? I don't like the word value chains because it's a bunch of BS. We're valuing it up here. Until we really see value, until they start calling it a value chain, we can't have a value chain. So how can we create supply chains tied to supporting the needs of all those along the way? And in the Congo, we are working to develop the coffee industry through creating a platform with all sectors of society, from some of the biggest buyers in the world all the way to the government in Kinshasa, the local government, 50 different co-ops, probably there's about 100 quasi-co-ops that represent over 500,000 growers. Many of them are unorganized still. And wow, we still have 5 minutes left. You should never have told me that. So how can we, so there's nearly 500,000 growers. Before the war, there was 120,000 tons of coffee being exported. It was the largest agricultural crop being exported out of the Congo. When I started going there, it was 6% of the exports were leaving the country. And it's slowly going up, but it's got a long way to go due to the conflict. And if we are to help transform the lives of the individuals along the value chain and not leaving behind those who are the ostracized, those with the disabilities from conflict, we need to take on the societal issues that prevent us from doing that work. And that includes the policies, the taxation, the access to the country, the conflict, the infrastructure, the knowledge that is required, the ability for development to benefit the people who are being reported on in the reports at a proportionally increased level than the individuals working on that work. It's very easy in a place like the Congo for a lot of money to end up in the organizations that are not actually creating the impact dollar for dollar because of the conflict, because of the crisis. This isn't easy work. It's very difficult work, and it's a result, that dynamic is a result not of an intention of individuals to be greedy, but rather trying to figure out how to work together. So through working together, we formed Savoir du Kivu, which is a collective impact framework for a conference and the first ever cupping competition, supply chain workshops that happens every June. I invite all of you guys to come. We are so fortunate to have Dennis and Michael enter into supporting Savoir du Kivu as a strategy to engage the whole network of the region where the epicenter of all this conflict happened, all the disability is. We can't tell you how many people have been blown up and are still living in the Congo because there isn't the ability to do a census there. We can't tell you how many people have been killed exactly in every co-op, even today. But through creating networks through Savoir du Kivu, we can plug in information, which we have started to do this last year, and we're in the first year, into all those 50 growing co-ops that are organized. So then the growing co-op president can distribute to all the growers, and each grower's community can then segment out to themselves to where they're working. So, you know, the impact has been a couple dozen prosthetics have been placed on people. They are able to walk, and that is a very amazing thing in less than a year. And some of those are actually entering the workforce. One individual wanted to be a prosthetician, and if you go visit Polis's website, you will find a video of her learning to walk, but also now working at the very center that helps provide her the ability to walk again. And we've created associations that are helping the individuals for psychosocial support that is sustainable because they're coming together, and it's working because they requested it. We have helped gain access to many buyers into the Congo, and we have begun to create partnerships that are going to leverage and scale this way beyond anybody else, because the consumer at the end of the day wants sustainability, and that will drive the market, tying this as a market differentiator that is going to help transform a country to be the future model of what sustainability can be.
We also have a short video here. This is one of the implementers we fund in the DRC, and this is what we're talking about when we help destroy, you know, unexploded ammunition. So there's a video where he's putting in some plastic explosives in the fuse well of looks like a mortar shell, getting ready to put it into the demolition pit. In Goma, where a large part of our operations are, we destroy 10 tons of this unexploded ordnance every week. And it is a job that we could, you know, easily, you know, quadruple. There's just that much stuff all throughout the Congo. So, and in this case, it's the FARDC, the Congolese military, who brings all this stuff in, or that the farmers, coffee farmers, who will call up their 911 and tell the police to come out and get it. So literally, it's the coffee farmers who are being injured, many of whom are women who till their land. So it's a very, we feel it's a very important project. We're very proud of it and open to any of your questions. Thank you.
Yes, one quick question, and then we'll move on to the last group.
Just like, could you just give us a little bit of insight on how much the farmers are benefiting in terms of like how much of their income's increased? Just a little bit of a story of them would be helpful.
Keep in mind that this is the first harvest coming up in which this project has been working. And we started, last December maybe? And so you can't really measure the impact on the incomes from this year's work. What I can say, though, is connecting the buyers to the growing co-ops is the first step. And then the second step is taking a page from USAID's playbook and now Feed the Futures, which is matching funds that then go back into the associations. And the matching funds come from the dollar per pound. So Higher Grounds and our importing co-op coffees had a partnership with USAID, Root Capital, Starbucks, Green Mountain, Keurig, 5 cents a pound for climate change, and it was tripled by USAID and Starbucks, and then went to projects in the co-ops that we were buying from based on proposals approved, and then Root Capital administered that work. So, you know, the model to go after is, or that we're doing, that Higher Grounds is going to do, in order to encourage others, is that exact model. That's the hope. So you can help us spread the word and encourage and pressure others to join.
Thank you. Do you mind passing the clicker?
Okay, so thank you, Darden Business School. Thank you, Department of State. Thank you, Concordia. It is a real honor to be here, and congratulations to you all. You have really amazing projects. I'll start by telling you that Guatemala loses billions of dollars because an overuse of toxic agrochemicals. And guess who are the ones that are losing the most? Well, smallholder farmers, yeah? So they needed an immediately solution, which this partnership provided to them. So Popoyan was responsible for developing and selling a biological control solution. University of Del Valle de Guatemala was responsible for providing us access to their facilities, to their labs, while we were constructing our state-of-the-art biofactory. Genesis Empresarial was responsible for providing microcredits to smallholder farmers to get access to our biological control solutions. And this partnership couldn't have been done without the seed capital that Feed the Future Partnering for Innovation provided to us, that Bob will continue explaining.
Thanks, Ignacio, and thank you for having us here today. So Partnering for Innovation is a USAID-funded activity, and it's, as Ignacio's mentioned, a part of the U.S. government's Feed the Future initiative. So we provide competitively awarded pay-for-performance funding that helps agribusinesses de-risk the high cost of commercializing technologies in the very challenging last-mile markets. In addition to financing, we also provide partners with expertise and advisory services in things like business strategy development, smallholder market analysis, and financing and budgeting. And in fact, in this case, we helped Popoyan connect up with international industry groups that are in the biotech business, as well as some consultants to take a look at the policies in Central America about biotechnology approval. So we've written out, we've got a nice study on the requirements for approval in each country in Central America. So we're laser focused on addressing smallholder farmers' lack of competitiveness and food security. Technologies do exist that can dramatically improve productivity, but these are difficult and not always commercially available for smallholder farmers to benefit from. And so this is what our funding, which is leveraged with Popoyan's funding as well, to help overcome. The market's vast. I like to say that there are at least 500 million smallholder farmers in the world, and about 2.5 billion people who rely primarily on agriculture income as their primary source of income. And that, my friends, is 1/3 of the world's population. So this is a big challenge and a big opportunity for businesses to get into. What excites us about MIP Futuro is that the biotech technology is very relevant. It's addressing a big challenge in the region, and it has the potential to impact tens of thousands of farmers in Guatemala alone, let alone the Central American region. I'll let Ignacios explain that in a minute. The costs required to meet these SDGs have been estimated in the trillions of dollars over the next decade. It's a daunting number. The majority of it has to come from the private sector. And leveraging this money with government and donor dollars to incentivize the private sector to meet the SDGs has to work. I think we have a very innovative model through Partnering for Innovation that's proving that it can. And I'm going to pass it over to Ignacios to talk a little bit more in detail about how we're doing it with Popoyan.
Thank you, Bob. So let me tell you a story about a young father called Marvin Cardona of two little girls. 25 years ago in Marvinstown, garlic production was a really important source of income, but pests and diseases became resistant due to an overuse of toxic agrochemicals. So growers were losing money, which led to a lack of economic opportunities in this town. That's when Marvin decided to illegally migrate to the United States, and he immediately was deported back home. When he arrived back in Guatemala, he started working with the MIP Futuro, And 3 months after using our biological control solutions, he started to make money. Yeah. 2 years after working with Meat Futuro, he's a Meat Futuro distributor. He's an agent of change in his community. He has improved his livelihood, and he started going to university. In our partnership, we have 8,000 Marvin Cardonas that demonstrate how Meat Futuro is developing long-lasting economic, social, and environmental, really important, environmental impact. And that personal transformation is really what Meat Futuro is all about. He went from extreme poverty to being a successful entrepreneur in only 2 years. Yeah. Now, let's talk about the business side of things. Yeah. In only 1.5 years, we have introduced more than 650 lead farmers that are now our distributors that help us achieve the last mile delivery for smallholder farmers. We have sold more than $400,000 in just 1.5 years, and we went from 0% of the market share to 8% of the market share in a specific region in Guatemala. And we were competing against big multinational chemical companies. So our shared value model, our technology, our last mile delivery, our concept is spreading out like wildfire. And and we are now expanding to other countries in Latin America. Yeah. In 5 years from now, we intend to have 50% of the market share. And we are imagining a world where your morning coffee is not threatened by the coffee roast, yeah? Where the bouquet of roses you receive on Valentine are perfect without any damages. And we imagine your Thanksgiving green beans without any pesticides, yeah? So I will leave it open for some questions if you want to go and want to have some questions for us.
If you could, I know we're out of time, but the biological control systems, how is that different? Just if you could give us a practical example of how it's different and better than the previous systems that were being used.
Yeah, so the biological, it's biotechnology, yeah? So we develop a biofactory that is able to scale up any pest and control solutions that exist. We are now working in 14 crops, and it's, we're using beneficial fungi and beneficial bacteria, as well as mites that eat the other mites. It's really amazing. And how is it more successful? And that was something that Feed the Future Partnering for Innovation helped us do, to do a cost-benefit analysis, and use that cost-benefit analysis as a marketing tool, yeah? So in that cost-benefit market analysis, we improved 10 times their income. But income means, for us, means money in the pocket of the grower, yeah? Not taking everything. So it's more environmental friendly. We went from 4%, which is the highest category of toxic, to 0, yeah? So those growers are in 0. So we're just rebalancing the biological environment.
Can I just add to that what they've done at the beginning of this program was to identify farmers who were willing to try this out on part of their field. And so they did side-by-side trials with lead farmers, and this is where the cost-benefit tool came in. And basically at harvest time and also during production, they would come out and visit the farmers. They'd dig up potatoes, for example, and look at the condition of the potatoes side by side against the chemical treated ones. Dramatic differences. The other interesting thing was that the farmers said they felt better about using this product. They knew it wasn't a poison. They knew they weren't getting it on themselves. They knew they weren't getting it in the fields and streams. They knew they weren't bringing it home into the household in their dirty clothes. And so this really has an impact on them, and surprisingly is a big selling point.
Mm-hmm. And just to add to Bob, our market, is extreme poverty. Yeah, these growers are in extreme poverty. Yeah, and extreme poverty, we mean sometimes they don't have anything to eat. Yeah, so we were able to identify the problem, know that one of the biggest impacts is that their containers are rejected from the exportations, and the guys that pay are the smallholder farmers. So by identifying that problem, we reversed and turned it into a sustainable solution and a business for us. Yeah.
I was just curious, is Popayan also the main off-taker of the products? I mean, in building sort of a sustainable business model here, and/or the other question is, at the input level, have you packaged it with other sort of technology parts of a technology package, or it's just biologicals with other partners, let's say?
Yes, Popayan is the implementer. We also produce. We are exporters, and we produce the tomatoes, peppers, garlic, onion, and we export. But we develop a really interesting last mile delivery package. In Guatemala, you have 1/16 of a hectare is the typical area. So for the distribution channel, we packaged 1 hectare divided into 16. So they can resell and a certain concept as pay as you go, and then the whole chain can sell the product and have an impact. So we did a study which was part of Feed the Future Partner Information Help. We developed a study that each one in the value chain needed to invest in the product, but their net income was more than 5 times greater.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So it is that time of the day that we have to close this, unfortunately. We're running out of time. We've run out of time already. So I just want to comment that you've already seen an amazing work that these folks are working on. Congratulations to each of you. It's a very diverse set of sectors. We've heard health, entrepreneurship and economic, conflict resolution, agriculture, and housing. So you're getting a very wide spectrum of global challenges around the world. And I just want to make sure the judges will confer after this, and if they have any questions for you in the meantime, they might come to you and speak with you. Make yourself available for that. But the most important is the Audience Choice Award, which have to be done with the app. If you have not downloaded the app, please download it now. That's the only way you could put your votes on. So you need to do it in short order. I think it's going to open and close very shortly. So please, before you leave this room, please cast your vote for that. And both the Impact Award, the grand prize winner, and the Audience Choice Award will be announced at the Mail Ballroom here at 5:50. So do not miss it. Be there. Both Mayor Margaret and I will be there to announce them. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for participating, and let's do this.
Just to reiterate, the voting's open until 1 p.m.
Okay.
Thank
1
you.
p.m. Yes,
Yeah.
1 p.m. Thank you.